Hey friends, this is Taylor, and I've been recently paring down my EDC knife collection, and it got me thinking, if I could only have one of these knives, I don't think I'll ever get down to actually owning a knife. But if I could only have one, what one would I recommend? What one would I go towards? So for me, this is my 6 one-and-done EDC knives. Let's start off with just the cheapest guy here. This is the Rat one by Ontario. And for the money, these are about $30, $35. These are fantastic knives. I've had a lot of friends and family members ask me, hey, I need a knife, I'm going camping, or I just want to keep, a pocket knife in my center console, what should I get? But they're looking for a more budget-friendly option. This is pretty much always my recommendation. You got plastic scales that kind of mimic G10 texturing, pretty solid drop point, blade shape. It's comfortable. And again, for 30 bucks, I'd put this up against any CRKT or Kershaw out there. It's just a all-around solid, I'll say, beater knife. Definitely worth what you would pay for it. Now, moving on to a little bit more premium selection in comparison, this is the Paramilitary 2. And kind of unlike the Rat doesn't have a ton of variations out there. There's almost an endless amount of variations when it comes to the Paramilitary. So I have the Flightanium scales on here. These are metal scales, but you have a knife that is made in, I don't know how many steels at this point, probably over a dozen different steel options, aftermarket parts, sprints, exclusives. There's tons of color variations and different steel combinations. So if there's something you've been looking for that you want, it's probably out there, or you can put it together. I'm also a really big fan of the compression lock. That's a thing that I think Spyderco does very well. And again, this is going to have a lot of variation as well. Anywhere from $150 to $300 plus, depending on what you're trying to get. You'll have some good choices there. But again, comfortable, well made, and for me, awesome locking mechanism. Now this one is one that I feel like I don't see recommended often enough. This is a fantastic knife. This is the Doug Ritter RSK Mark II. And I've never been a big fan of armbar style locking mechanisms, and this was the knife that changed it for me. It's super smooth. I love the blade shape on this, and it's also very comfortable. Might be kind of hard to pick up on camera, but the scales are a little bit rounded, so it just kind of melts into your hand. It feels really good. You get a lot of traction on that. For about $170, you're definitely out of the budget category, but I'd say this is worth it. It's very well made. Hogue is who makes this knife for Doug Ritter, and I would say that I'd be more than happy if this is the only knife I can get my hands on. For quite a while, this was my #1 recommendation. This is the American Lawmen by Cold Steel. And this is just a super well-made, really solid knife. This one's XHP. They make it in S35 now. But what this knife does, I think the best, is how thin the knife is. And it makes it very conducive to EDC carry. And that's something I really like about this. It's easy to put in board shorts, your gym shorts or something like that, and it's not going to weigh them down. It just is very pleasant to carry because of that. And I carried it every day for a little over 2 years because it was so convenient, and I really, really liked it. At the time when I bought both of mine, they were around $100. I think they're at $120 now. I'm going to say that for the value, for what you pay for this knife, you get the best value. You're getting a ton of knife for that amount. So this may still be my top recommendation. If you're out of the budget category and just want a lot of functionality, this is probably the one. Now, I did say kind of was dethroned because the Spyderco Shaman is just awesome. It's really comfortable. It is super solid, well built. And again, this is kind of a similar situation. You can get these in a number of different colors and steels and things like that. So there's enough combination and choice out there. But I just love this knife. It's the final product is definitely greater than the sum of its parts. The blade shape, how comfortable it is, fit and finish. And again, that compression lock for me is always going to be a really good selling point. So that's just maybe a personal bias there. And then we have the SR by Lion Steel. I adore this knife. When I first saw it, I thought it was a little funky looking, but when I put it in my hands, I immediately realized that there's something pretty cool here. The interesting texturing on this aluminum handle is actually pretty awesome. It gives you a lot of positive grip. The whole handle is actually machined out of a single piece of aluminum. So it's one piece. They machine it all out. It's kind of cool. It also has a little locking mechanism here, so you can't open the lock until you unlock it. It's got a steel insert for the frame lock there. And it's Schleppner steel, so it's a nice overall quality knife. I've had this for a few weeks now. It's growing on me, and I think it's potentially dethroning the Shaman. Now, I said I was paring down my EDC collection, but I picked this up recently. This has been on my list for well over a year, and I actually traded for it. So didn't pare down the collection when getting this, but I didn't technically grow it either. But for what you would normally pay for this knife, it's hard to say that there's not an awesome EDC knife in this. It's very comfortable. It's relatively lightweight considering it's kind of a chonky fella. There is also a larger version as well. But for me, this kind of hits the mark as far as a really nice, well-made EDC knife. So, again, depending on your budget, depending on your personal preference, if there's a steel you may or may not be looking for, handle material, etc., there's a lot of different options on the market. For me, if you were looking to only pick up a single knife for everyday carry use, I would feel very confident in saying any of these knives would be a great pick. Budget is going to be a big influence on that as well. So knowing what you want to spend is going to be very helpful. But ultimately, every single one of these knives I've carried for many months, if not years, and I'm very happy with any one of them. Personally, these three are the ones that I would maybe consider to be, I don't know, God tier, my favorite. But these other three, like I said, I've carried a lot, and they're all well made, very comfortable, and as far as everyday carry goes, it's hard to beat them. So I appreciate you guys watching. Hit the like button if you found this helpful. If you have any questions, comment below. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, and I'm trying to update a lot more EDC oriented videos here. So if you have questions or other things you want to see, please feel free to drop that in the comments. Appreciate you guys.